is New Orleans flooded, yeah? This is Mississippi. This is what we mean by Katrina touched down and tore Mississippi to smithereens, like wiped it out, and then flooded New Orleans. This is Mississippi. Complete bridge broken. Casinos moved. Another view of that highway. I've never seen no highway do nothing like that. Can you imagine? And this is not to compare the two. I think we just have to acknowledge that Mississippi was impacted greatly, if not just as much as New Orleans. The issue is that New Orleans, it left the people stranded and destitute, and they didn't get to them. Mississippi, they did get aid a little quicker, if it's my understanding, but they were still just as displaced, and they came back to nothing. I know it's hard to tell the difference, but if you look at this is the before, this is the after. If you see this casino right here, the casino used to be right here, and it moved completely across the highway. Also, if you see all of this right here, it's developed. All of this is just debris. This is actual physical houses. This is all debris. Like a tornado swept through that thing. It's unbelievable. It really is. One reporter said that this is almost the equivalent to how it looked when they dropped a bomb on Hiroshima. When they dropped the atomic bomb, she said that's the equivalent. That's crazy. This picture blew me away because there's no house, just steps, no house. The one guy that told his story, they went back to his grandpa's house, and his grandpa was able to work on their house and rebuild their house. But some of these people in Mississippi, they don't have nothing, and wasn't no rebuilding either. They said Mississippi, neither one of them have been the same. Anyhow, sending lots of love to those who were impacted, regardless of where you lived. Yeah.
So I've been telling my Hurricane Katrina story for 20 years. I never thought to record it. It would have saved me a lot of breath. I see a lot of people recording their stories and putting them out there. I just want to get y'all mine. I just want to add, through the whole situation, nobody ever sat us down and asked us if we was okay. They just expected us to just go with the situation, how it was going. Whoever live here now, I'm sorry. But I'm from the Ninth Ward. This is the house 2424, where I spent majority of my childhood, or the parts of childhood that I remember, right in this house. But we moved, right? So when Hurricane Katrina hit, I stayed in Chalmette on Oak Tree Lane, around the corner from Plantation, the Village Square, right around the corner from the Circle. So August 29, 2005, Hurricane Katrina hits. My mama said we ain't going nowhere. We ain't leaving. My mama didn't even have a car. So, I don't even expect it why we even thought we was leaving. But my mama said, we from New Orleans. Hurricanes come. Hurricanes go. We going to ride this one out. We going to sit down. And that's after the fact. Mayor Ray Nagin got on TV and said, if y'all stand, write y'all names on y'all arms, on y'all doors, y'all ages, y'all birthday, because y'all probably not going to make it. But we stayed, right? The police came around that morning. They had their blaring their sirens on their little go inside. It's a curfew. Hurricane about to hit. Go inside, right? So we inside. It starts raining. Boom. All right. Rain. Right? Water start growing crazy out of nowhere. 2 feet, 4 feet, 6 feet. Y'all see that line, right? That's where the water stopped. It came through the window, came through the doors. That's where the water stopped. 17 feet of water. Everything under that drowned. Everything in my hood, everything under that line did not make it. When we went to the convention center, people that was close to the levee said they heard the levees explode, or they heard loud bangs, or they heard. Anyways, and I believe them. Because there's no way. Next door, right there, our neighbor, right? We bust down her wall because we knew she was elderly. We bust down her wall. She had animals. We bust down her wall to try to get to her. And also to try to get to the other apartment where it was higher ground, right? But none of us could swim. I couldn't swim. I was crying. Mama. Listen, everybody in the house had to uplift me because I just knew we wasn't going to make it. But 4-5 hours later, we sitting in 17 feet of water, scared, when help gonna come, right? Imagine seeing a boat come through your hood. They come pick us up in a boat. They tell the lady, oh man, we can't take no animals with us. So she decided to stay. She decided to stay with her animals. I have no idea if she made it out. I have no idea if anybody came back for her. I just left CF Raleigh. If y'all ever been to CF Raleigh, listen, I was ready to go to Chalmette Middle. I just knew I was about to play basketball. I just knew I was about to play trumpet. I just knew I was about to be in a band. Hurricane Katrina stopped all that. Changed my life forever. Changed our lives forever. The New Orleans that you see now is a skeleton of the New Orleans that what was before Hurricane Katrina hit. And it took what was or what could have been away from all of us. So the people came through in the boats and they came got us. We going through saving other people in the water. We seeing bodies. We seeing animals. We seeing snakes. We seeing all kind of stuff in this water, right? They took us to Chalmette Hospital. Where we had to sleep on top of the hospital because, they had the patients. They had to move the patients in. So as we went into the hospital, we seeing sickly patients. We seeing old patients. We seeing everybody like literally on their last breath, in this hospital. And they took us to the roof where we slept at and they gave us food. So this is where they took us after we left the hospital to St. Bernard Sheriff's office, prison, right? So imagine being in this situation. You just lost everything. You just seen your whole hood swallowed up by water. Now you in the presence of inmates with your mom, your little sisters, right? But in this area, it wasn't that flooded, maybe like 2-3 feet of water. So people was able to go in like stores and stuff to get things that they need to survive in this situation. The news would call it looting at this time, right? So me, my brother, my sisters, and my mama, we go in the store. We try to get some stuff. Imagine coming out the store just trying to get stuff to survive, and you got cops pointing pew-pews at you and your family, telling you to put stuff down, put it down, put it down, put it down, put it down. When you in a situation like, I was not about to eat the spaghetti they were serving in this place. I was not. Shout out to my homie Ray, his sister Macy, and his sister Chelsea. Ray was killing that spaghetti, man. They moved to Minnesota after this. If y'all see this, man, holla at me. But I was not eating that spaghetti. My mama wasn't. Listen. So we was trying to get some stuff to survive. So I know y'all heard bad things about what happened in the Superdome and people that was being unalived by other people and cops and stuff. That's all true. That's all true. It was really a tough situation to be in and seeing or hearing about. So after we left there, we went to the convention center, where they gave us food and they looked out or whatever as best as they could. But we didn't have it as hard as the people in the Superdome did. And I always say thank God because I was with my mom and I was with my sisters. And I wouldn't want, as a 12-year-old child, I wouldn't have wanted to be in that situation with them going through that. So like I said, we went to the convention center. We was there for a couple days where my mama met this nice, lovely couple from Arizona, Pastor David and his wife, Pastor Diana. They lived in Mesa, Arizona. My mama came to us, say, look, I met these people. They want to, make sure we straight. We moved to Mesa, Arizona. And talking about culture shock, I should make this a part 2 because this has nothing to do with Hurricane Katrina. But in hindsight, it does. Because when I moved to Mesa, Arizona, and I started going to school out there, my accent and how I talk was completely different from even now. Like, I'm talking about ninth ward, like, I'm trying cold drink. I'm trying to listen. I'm trying to tell you. So when I'm out there, people, oh, you a refugee, oh, you dirty, all kind of stuff. Like, oh, you was in that hurricane, So now I'm fighting. Listen, man. That's a whole part 2, man. Like, comment if y'all want to hear about my life in Arizona or even my life in the ninth ward. But long story short, Hurricane Katrina was a terrible, terrible situation. And like I tell everybody, you will never be able to imagine the things that we seen, the things that we smelt, the things that we had to deal with at the time in a country that still to this day don't really care about us. So back then, y'all remember when Kanye got on TV and said George Bush don't like black people? Listen, bro, we felt that. We felt that, and we still feel that to this day. Listen, if you've ever met somebody from New Orleans, outside of New Orleans, you'll know we love the city. Love it to death, man. Because what we knew before Katrina, that's something that our kids will never experience. That's something that we could never go back to, man. And it's just crazy how it was taken away from us.
So, my mom died in Hurricane Katrina. She drowned. But myself, my siblings, my cousins, everyone else that was in the house survived. So, I'm going to tell my story as a Hurricane Katrina survivor from the Mississippi Gulf Coast. And y'all bear with me because this is like my second time fully really telling the story, but my first time publicly speaking on it. So, we're going to get through it. All right, y'all. So, being from Mississippi, we have like protocols and things on what to do during storms. And when Hurricane Katrina hit, we had already had two storms back to back right before Katrina. And those storms didn't do much damage. The news will always report, oh, this is going to be a big one, it's going to devastate things, and it didn't do any damage. Mind you, I lived in a two-story home. So I'm 11 at the time. So my mom figured that it would be safe for us to stay in the house for Hurricane Katrina because it's a two-story home. I mean, I think that's probably safer, considering past circumstances or whatever. So, needless to say, my mom invited my cousins over and her sister, and it was about 7 kids, 3 adults in the home. Hurricane Katrina started really silent. It was a different kind of silence because you really didn't know, you couldn't imagine what was going to happen. So, it's the regular thundering and raining, and then the flooding began. And we all rushed to the top floor, until the storm was over. And I remember my mom, put the clothes on the bed, on her bed downstairs, because that's how we didn't think that, the water would be that high. Needless to say, I remember sitting on the stairs and I was counting as the water covered each step. And I was just praying to God that it would stop. We had 13 stairs, and I just prayed that, it'll stop at 13. And we all were upstairs. The entire neighborhood was covered with water. And the wind was so strong from the outside, and of course with the water, that the house was like swaying back and forth. So like we're standing up, but we're being swayed. We're surrounded by, the house is surrounded by water. With this being a two-story home, it's like the tallest one in the neighborhood. I remember the look of defeat in my mom's eyes, and she was just staring out the window and just saying, we're going to die, because my mom couldn't swim. And I remember at 11 years old, I'm just contemplating and accepting death at this point because there was no other way. Eventually, my brother, the water filled the home, the entire home. And from there, my brother swam out of the house, out the window, to a tree. And that was our plan, is for everyone to swim out the house and get on the tree. The only thing is there was only one adult that could swim. So while on the tree waiting for everyone else to make it out, it was silent for like felt like forever. So we decided to get on the roof. At the moment that we got on the roof is when we saw the rest of the family on the other side of the roof. And I remember looking for my mom. I'm like, where's my mom? Now mind you, we're outside while it's storming on the roof, and it's raining hard. The wind, I don't think I've ever felt nothing like that. So we're soaking wet and the wind is blowing. And it was just, honestly, I was happy to be out the house, but it's like, you get out of the house you just pretty much have to be in the storm until it's over. All right, so that's pretty much how we wrote it out. I really can't remember how long. I remember falling asleep on the roof. All of us, the youngest one was 2 years old. She had on a pamper. So we just slept on the roof during the storm until the water came down enough. And then from there, we went, to find help. So after the storm, seeing everybody from the community, we're walking around. We're just looking at everything that, is torn up. And it's just like our entire life just changed. At that time, I couldn't accept that my mom was dead because I didn't see it. And in my mind, I just always at that age, I always just felt like, maybe she, maybe she held onto a tree. She's out there. We got to find her. So Hurricane Katrina was August the 29th. And after that time, we were searching for her body. My mom's friends, family, they were getting together, just searching for it. My mom's funeral was held in October. That's how long it took, And the entire time, they found her body under the roof. So many layers to the story. But during that time after Hurricane Katrina, I had a hard time of dealing with, not only the death of my mom, dealing with experiencing something as traumatic as a hurricane. That's when I learned about trauma because, in our community, we don't feel like we're faced with trauma or that, we're affected by those things. We just get through it. I remember after Katrina, we stayed with my grandma. We were sleeping outside. And things like that. We just had to do what we had to do after Katrina. But I remember sleeping outside in my dad's truck, and I remember just I would have kind of nightmares where floods and things. And I remember waking up and running. I was so messed up, and I never had the time to really deal with it. I never really spoke about it because I felt like no one cared, and not in the sense of ones around me, my family. I just felt like the world didn't care. We just kept moving on with our life, and we just picked up the pieces and rebuilt it, as we could. So when I see a lot of people from Mississippi speaking up, it's not a fact of comparing trauma. It's not that. I think that for the past 20 years, we've been, we just kind of rebuilt things ourselves. It's less about comparing trauma and it's more about rewriting history. So to, everyone that has been affected, sending a lot of blessings out because it's not something easy, whether you are in New Orleans or whether you are in Mississippi. To my Gulf Coast, to my Mississippi people, sending much love to you as well. There are a lot of people from my childhood that we have not seen ever again. Everyone just kind of went their separate ways, and we suffered a lot from that. Just picking things up in your entire life being washed away. But as for me, I'm telling my story, my mom's story, because she will forever be a hero to me. For her, she didn't know how to swim, and her only goal was making sure that we made it out the house safely. So for years, I just would feel guilty because, I wish she would have gotten helped first. So I got to smile when I cry. But, you know, but my story, my mom's story, our story deserves to be heard. And I want more people to come out and finally speak about it.
I stayed for Hurricane Katrina. 20 years later, 20 years later, I think that this story has been told a few times, but never from my mouth. So I was 5 years old. I remember waking up after the storm had passed. So the storm hit on day 1. By day 2 and 3, that's when we started feeling the effects. So I remember waking up and there was already water coming in through the house. Not like through the windows or doors or anything, but think of like when you walk on the beach and you walk in the wet sand and the water gets in between your toes. That's kind of how it was. So if you had carpet, every step you took, there was water seeping up. It was rising this way. And my parents were freaking out. My dad had, thank God, because a lot of people don't know that a lot of people that died, they didn't drown in their house or anything like that. A lot of people died because they could not get out of their attic. You're in an attic in heat, like in Louisiana, you have to cut that screen out or you will suffocate. And a lot of people ended up suffocating in their attics. So I remember my dad specifically, just moving. Like, I ain't never seen this man move this fast a day in my life. Like, he was moving. Thank God that my dad had a military background, had military experience. He knew what to do. He snapped into soldier mode real quick. So I remember him just moving around the house. Like, we had bunk beds, me and my brother. We had bunk beds. I remember him putting me and my brother on the top bunk of the bunk beds while he's grabbing stuff. He's grabbing food, he's grabbing water, he's grabbing anything he can before this water is up to our necks, because the water was rising really fast, okay? Like, it was rising really fast. You really didn't have much time to think, gather, anything like that. Like, you had to, once you realized what was happening, you had to act fast and get out. Once we were on the bunk beds, time frame wise, I want to say maybe 15 to 20 minutes, the water was already up to the bunk beds. So my dad and my mom was like, okay, we got to get up in the attic. Like, this water's coming in quick. We make it to the attic. Okay, we make it in the attic. It's hot as fuck in New Orleans in August, okay? It's hot as fuck. It's hot as shit. So we make it to the attic. And by night 1, my dad was like, we can't really stay in this attic for long, like, whatever. So he cuts the screen out of the attic window, and then we maneuver our way to the roof. It's so crazy that even being that young, there's so many details that I will never get out of my head. So, like, one main detail is the things that I brought with me on the roof. So, I know we had Uno cards. I don't know any of my, 1990, early 2000 babies remember the, Kiki Cabbage Patch dolls. I had one of those. My brother had some action figures. There was this big purple and white blanket we brought. We brought, 2 jugs of water. And we had some, knockoff Cheetos. When we make it onto the roof wasn't flat. It was kind of arched, so you had to be, very careful. We slept on the roof most nights. We were out there 3 days. 3 days and 2 nights we stayed on the roof, switching back and forth from the roof to the attic, waiting to get rescued. The thing that is most heartbreaking about all this coming to light right now is that there are no lies being told. They were picking and choosing. It was racism still happening. It actually got way worse when them levees broke. I remember by the second night, we seen a helicopter, because I was 5. My dad and my mom, like, they were taking shifts, like, waving a t-shirt in the air, like, help us, like, you know, on the roof, whatever, trying to get the airplane's attention. So I remember the second night, a helicopter did come pretty close to our house. Like, we just knew we were about to get rescued. So we were rationing the food and water that we had, because we didn't know how long we were going to be out there. So we ended up eating the food, the water, because we're thinking we're about to get rescued. Nope. They went right past our neighborhood to a white person's neighborhood, and we seen them rescuing the white people. It's literally kind of like, based off the color of your skin, you were left for dead out there. Rescued by the third day, more so the third night, because we went through the whole third day on the roof still. So I would say the third night after we got rescued, they took us to the Superdome. They rescued you. When you got rescued, they sent this little basket thing down, the helicopter did, and they like put you in there. Well, you put yourself in there, and they swooped you up. They took us to the Superdome, and thank God, I don't remember a lot about the Superdome. I want people to understand more so how this affected all of our futures, because I think a lot of people are stuck on the actual event and not the aftermath of it. Like, I question every day where my life would be and how much different of a person I would be and how much different my life would be if this would have never happened, because we were all displaced from our families. Like, I have a huge family. You know, my mom is one of 13. So I quite literally only see them maybe once every 3 to 5 years if I'm lucky, because we're all so far now. Because of Katrina, I didn't get to grow up with my aunties, uncles, grandmas, grandpas, cousins, nothing like that. Like, I was displaced. I consider myself still displaced. Like, when people ask me where I'm from, I do not say where I live. I'm not from here. I'm from Louisiana, because that's not an event that we just decide to pick up and move from. Like, we were literally, like, ripped from our homes, and a lot of people never made it back. So it's like, there's a whole generation of people that were born down there that had not only their livelihoods snatched from them, but their families, their culture. Imagine being born somewhere and you're just ripped out of that place. No warnings, no nothing. You're just ripped out of that place, and you have to do a 360 with your environment, how you were being raised, what you were used to seeing, hearing, eating, being around. Like, that's the aftermath of Katrina, because most of us are still displaced. It wasn't like, oh, we were displaced in a little shelter for a little bit and we got to go back. No, that's not how that worked. I just feel like there's a whole nother person in myself that I never had the chance to get to know and be a part of her, because that whole side of me was ripped away, was taken away. That was my culture. That was my roots. I don't have any real roots where I'm living at right now. So I guess I've always felt like an outsider. No matter how old I get, no matter how long I live here, I will always feel like an outsider, because that was not supposed to happen. And I always question where my life would be, how different I might be, how different life might look for me if that would have never happened.
This is a picture of me at age 11. You see that picture right there, my mom and dad on their wedding day? That's the only thing that we could save out my house after the damage of Hurricane Katrina. I grew up in the Lower Ninth Ward. It was one of the worst places that was hit in New Orleans. We evacuated to Texas and then came back to see the damage that happened to our house. And my mama gave me a little disposable camera just to take pictures of everything. And this is my third time recording this video. And I'm trying to look at these pictures without crying. But it's just so hard to see where you grew up, your friends' houses, your neighbors' houses, your family members' houses just reduced to rubble. Like, I'm used to play and shoot jacks on these streets, and now people's homes are just rooftops. Like, everything was just people's people's lives just pushed to the side like trash. Just the front porch left. Oh my God. Trying to. I don't know if you can see that, but that's somebody's car on the gate. I don't even know what to say. I don't even know what to say. Like, my people still staying on lower night ward, and I had to go pick my baby up to go to school from his grandma's house, and just to see like these empty lots, these overgrown lots, like where families were, are now just a bunch of trees, or where kids used to play is now just flat grass. Like, it's been 20 years since Katrina, and it still affects me to this day. It was a traumatic experience. It was it's like a timeline shift, and it's hard to even explain, to lose all your friends you grew up with. Yep. I don't know, it's hard to make this video. And no, I haven't watched any of the Katrina documentaries. I don't know, y'all. Cut the cameras.
Hurricane Katrina actually hit Florida, Mississippi, Alabama, and some parts of Tennessee. But why did New Orleans get hit so hard? Now, your first mind is going to go to, oh, well, they're 6 feet below sea level. And I'm not going to debunk that, but I will say, what if it was actually more sinister? What if I told you that the Mississippi River didn't even flood? And New Orleans sits right on the Mississippi River. A hurricane of that magnitude would have swelled the Mississippi River had it have come with so much force to do what it did to New Orleans. And the reason that I wouldn't attribute a lot of the damage in New Orleans to the hurricane is because the levees. Honorable mention, I want you guys to go watch Spike Lee's documentary. It's a 4-part documentary called When the Levees Broke. It will really give you a breakdown of what happened. There were people that said they heard bombs go off at the levees. And that wasn't a far reach, considering that in 1962, the city admitted to bombing the levees and flooding out the black areas so that the French Quarter and other white areas aren't affected by the hurricane. Look up Hurricane Betsy. So why on August 29th of 2005 is it such a far reach for a black woman, multiple black people to say, we heard the bombs go off at the levees? Well, I mean, we don't have to have the reason for that or go into it. We all know why. Now, at one point, the city of New Orleans was the country's gem, okay? That was where a lot of slaves were coming through. That was where the French came. It was truly just something that they took care of. This is before the mid-1900s. But it really began shortly after the Haitian Revolution. Y'all know I'm always mention the Haitian Revolution. Because New Orleans started to see an influx of their black population. And that is covered in my Creole versus Cajun video or series. If you want to know more about that, it should be on my page. But by 2005, New Orleans is basically this ugly stepchild. Nobody cares about New Orleans. And it showed when Hurricane Katrina hit. It showed that 1.2 million people were evacuated from Louisiana alone. And I don't want you to think that Hurricane Katrina was just catastrophic to infrastructure. Baby, it killed hundreds of people. It trapped 150,000 people in the city because New Orleans had 127,000 people without cars. And considering the mayor told the entire city not to evacuate, I mean, you'd think that that would be taken into account. Maybe once it was time to evacuate, the city would at least have enough buses or something for these people. But no, when they said, all right, maybe we should evacuate, after hearing that there was a Category 5 coming their way, they just said, all right, and find your way out. Now, if you had a car, it would be simple. Load up the car, get on the road. But what about the people that didn't have cars? They had no time to even plan for a ride. What do you mean this is going to start in a few hours? And one thing I want you to know is, geographically, New Orleans sits in a bowl. It's a bowl. So once water spills in there, it just sits there. It's complacent there. And do you think that the city cared enough to invest in the infrastructure to drain this? Do you think their drainage system was upgraded enough when the levees themselves hadn't been fixed in decades? After failing numerous inspections, the city refused to fix these levees. And if you don't know what a levee is, imagine a dam.
Okay, imagine a dam. On this side that you see, my outer skin, this is water. On the other side of this is fucking human beings, houses, businesses, but it sits 6 feet below sea level. So there's water up to here, but the city is at my pinky. That's a levee. You'd think that that'd be something that's really important to the city. Like that would be something that's like, we got to keep this up. But no, they did not care. Also, what a lot of people don't know is even though it was a hurricane, it was hot as hell. It was 100 degrees. And it was 100 degrees in the shade. The hurricane was so bad, like even if you think about the Superdome situation, which is the football stadium that sits on the hill, it's set up above the rest of the city, so that's where they were told to evacuate. Hundreds of thousands of people were in and out of this Superdome, with a lot of them dying. And when I tell you they didn't have sewage, can you imagine 40,000, 50,000 people in at once with no sewage system? They didn't have food. FEMA neglected them completely. No AC, they didn't have cots, no bed. They didn't have medical equipment, no protection. There was no protection. And when you think about all the babies alone, the infants, there was no supply for diapers. There was no supply for the milk. There was no supply for anyone. The city had multiple days to prepare for this, but they just left. And there's a number of accounts where people tried to flee because New Orleans is connected to other parishes. If you don't know what parishes are, I'm just going to call them cities. It's connected to other small cities, but you just have to cross bridges. Multiple bridges were blocked off because the president of the parish, which we could call like the mayor, right? The mayor of that parish was saying, no New Orleans refugees are allowed here. Our hospitals are not for you. And at one point, multiple people were shot in the back while trying to run away from police on these bridges. So imagine you're crossing this bridge. You finally made it to the other side, and there's police there. The police tell you, turn around or we gonna shoot you. You gonna try and argue your way too, right? You gonna try and argue your way too, because what the fuck y'all mean? But then you ultimately back down. But as you're backing down and walking away, you get shot in the back. And this was a lesson to the rest of the people on the other side of this bridge. So it wasn't just the federal government that didn't care about New Orleans. It was also the presidents, the mayors of other parishes. Their own mayor told them not to evacuate. Now, he did ultimately come back and say, all right, I was wrong for that. But we have to see the incompetence that was already in place before this Hurricane Katrina as the problem. Before the hurricane, the homeless population was around 2,000. After 2007, which is, we want to say 2 years after the hurricane, it was swelled up to 12,000. With 80% of those people saying that they've lived in New Orleans all of their lives. And they were just negatively impacted by Hurricane Katrina. All right, 13 hidden facts about Hurricane Katrina that I'm sure you didn't know. They're freaking terrible. So warning, death and a lot of other stuff. If you're sensitive, don't watch this. Okay, let's go. 6,500 inmates were left in the New Orleans prison. The sheriff already knew that the hurricane was coming, and he decided that it would be better for them to die in there than for them to be loose on the streets. The COs left first, and 550 people were killed. Next, the buildings that weren't demolished from the water were used as like detention centers for Muslims, Hispanics, and Black people. I even found an article where parts of a CDS was used as like a detention center, and they used the bathrooms as holding cells. In these centers, there were people sleeping on the floor. They had no legal representation, and since these were detention centers, there had to be some sort of due process, and they had their own way of making up some sort of due process, asking you where are your birth certificates, where's your documentation, like you didn't just lose all that in the water. And if you couldn't produce it, you were facing detention or deportation. I mentioned it in my last video, but in 1965, there was a Hurricane Betsy, where the local government admitted to flooding, to blowing up the levees with dynamite in order to save the white parishes. They flooded the entire 9th Ward, which, if you can guess, is predominantly Black. And a lot of people would say, oh, it had nothing to do with Black people, it was just poor people, it was a classist thing. Baby, no. We not about to act dense. You can, so do it somewhere else. This one's gonna blow your mind. The Department of Homeland Security hired Blackwater mercenaries. And if you don't know what Blackwater mercenaries are, think like freaking John Wicks. They're racist John Wicks, right? Very talented. The Department of Homeland Security hired these people to protect buildings in the city during a hurricane and to stop looters. As if they're not looting for a reason. And when the government was questioned about like why they hired these civilians to do these things, they said that they didn't. But the Blackwater mercenaries was like, hold up, we got receipts. Nothing else was heard from the Homeland Security on that matter. Also, similarly, a lot of millionaires who had homes in the city, they didn't even live in the city, but if they had homes in the city, they hired security, not necessarily Blackwater mercenaries, but they hired security, and these security guards were just having a field day. They were predominantly white and predominantly racist, and they killed a lot of black people, or targeted a lot of black people. Next, the police shot and killed 10 people who was trying to cross a bridge to leave the parish, the city that they were in, because it was literally underwater. They were shot and killed because they were trying to seek help. We got offered hundreds of tons of aid from different countries, Venezuela, Cuba, Mexico, but a lot of it was actually turned down. Not by the people who needed it the most, by the government. Cuba sent 1,600 doctors, 26 tons of medicine, and they raised money through their own version of like MLB, like their big baseball like frame or whatever. They raised money using that. Venezuela offered 5 million, and that's just in money. They also offered 1 million tons of oil, and that's just in money. They also offered 1 million barrels of oil, which was needed. America turned it down. Mexico sent a surgical unit, and I want to say it was 450 tons of food, water, and supplies to the refugees. Mexican Marine workers also worked on the Marine dock in New Orleans. Also, there's a monument to honor them in New Orleans to this day, which is kind of cool. Lastly, there was a nursing home called Rita's. This is the one that really pisses me off. It really takes the cake. There is a nursing home named Rita's. They were told to evacuate. This was no you make the option type of thing. They were told to evacuate, just like the other 10 plus nursing homes in the city who did evacuate. But Rita's, the owners decided, no, I think we can withstand. As if you don't have elderly lives, like literally in your possession right now. They decided to stay. 32 of those residents died. 32 of those, and what makes it worse is that, yeah, they were found guilty and they paid a fine, somebody went to jail, but they are still open to this day. They are still open. People trust their parents and grandparents and aunties and uncles in their care after such a horrible decision. Yes, they were white. Did you know this?
So, I wasn't going to go here, but I am. Hurricane Katrina survivor. I went to my mom. I said, Mom, come on, we got to go. If you Google the word Katrina, it means cleanse. I said, the Lord is sick of this city and he's getting ready to do something. We got to go. My little brother said, I ain't going nowhere. She always saying, go at this, going there, go at that. I ain't going nowhere. So he decided to stay for Hurricane Katrina. My mom and I and my daughter, we was in the jacuzzi when the storm came. He had to swim out the house. It was going to be him or the dog. In fact, the water was so high, he had to walk on across the street on top of the graveyard. See, because our obedience, it put us in a better place. When you disobedient, it allow you to feel a place that God didn't want you to experience anyway. I don't know who I'm talking to this morning, but you better be obedient to God. Great morning. So I wasn't going to go here, but I am. Being a Hurricane Katrina survivor, it actually taught us some everyday life learned lessons. As it relates to my mom, she loved the Lord. She listened to me. She obeyed what the Spirit had to tell me. As it relates to Hurricane Katrina, my brother was very disobedient. He decided to stay. It was either going to be him or the dog. Catch this, when he didn't know the dog was a swimmer by nature. He locked them up in the attic and the dog died. This lets me know something. As I reflect back to that very moment, you don't know what's designed inside of you. You a survivor by nature. Catch this. But if you locked up in a place, your soul is in prison lies, you won't be able to survive and do what God has called you to do. Tap back into the Lord. Don't be called. Don't be called and can't do what you're called for. If salt loses its taste, what is its purpose? Great morning.
Girl, now let's start this Hurricane Katrina story, because y'all been waiting. I will be starting my Hurricane Katrina story of the day of Hurricane Katrina, because I think people forget that Hurricane Katrina didn't actually destroy New Orleans. The flood destroyed New Orleans. So where I was at, a hurricane actually did destroy St. Tammany Parish, right? So St. Tammany Parish had all type of trees down, electric wires down. So much was going on, and it just was a lot going on that, you know, New Orleans didn't have going on, so nobody like really acknowledged it. But St. Tammany Parish did have a lot going on at that point in time. Now again, like I started the story off, I did want to let y'all know that I was not with my mama and I was in custody. But I wasn't in custody in jail. I was in custody in basically foster care, right? Because I had just got out of, I bet you could say, the detention center, because I never went to the penitentiary, and then I just pulled up. Okay, y'all, but I was 14 years old. So the day we woke up, Miss Fry was like, first of all, she was always extra aggressive and wouldn't really listen to anything I said. She's really one of them old people. So, yeah. So the day I woke up, I'm like, can I call my mom? Can I call my mom? She wouldn't let me call my mama. She wouldn't let me check on nobody. Like, I wasn't able to do anything, right? She wouldn't let me do anything. We get on the road. We make it to Alexandria. Then we, like, go past that. Then we come all the way back, right? We get to Alexandria. We go to this church, y'all. We went to the Pentecostal church. Now, again, I'm still looking for my mama, still asking her to call my mama, still asking her what's going on, like, what's going on? Like, can I talk to my mama? Like, no, she did not want me to talk to my mama. And another thing is about being in foster care when you're in the system and you still have your family. It's like they be trying to push your family away from you. And in the midst of Katrina, they wanted me to be a part of the system. Like, they wanted the money that they was getting from me. So I was already a high-profile case, so she was already getting about $2,500 a week just for me to be with her. So when Katrina hit, she was getting about almost $6,000 a week, okay? And let's not forget that she wouldn't give me nothing. That bitch wouldn't buy me nothing. So again, I'm 14. We at the Pentecostal church. Yo, the first day we get there, we go to like some type of Bible study and like a recreational thing. Now this is at the point where I don't know Katrina this bad. I didn't know that all this had happened. They show us the news with Katrina. You know them bitches say that this is happening to Louisiana because, to New Orleans because of everything that happened. Because they have the devil there, and the devil was just trying to wash everything away. Now, at this point in time, I didn't know that it was only black people that just getting washed away, okay? But this is what he said out of his mouth. Okay. The story is deeper because, again, y'all, we left, and we only left for, like, a couple of things to close. We ended up staying at the Pentecostal church for, like, a good almost 2 months. Y'all, in the midst of doing all this, she registered me in school. Yo, she put me in one school. I go to a whole another school on the bus and I'm in high school. She don't even know this. She don't even know I didn't went to the high school. Okay? Anyway, let's get back to the Pentecostal church. All I can really tell y'all right now, because it's kind of getting emotional, and I'm gonna wait a second. But the system definitely failed me in the midst of Katrina, and I wasn't a part of that. Now, don't get me wrong, I did meet some good people in the midst of this when I tell y'all these stories. But I do want y'all to know that I was manipulated. I had a lot going on, and I was young. And that's all I could see.
So I am a Hurricane Katrina victim or evacuee, whatever you want to call it. And I see everybody telling their story because the documentary came out. So I want to tell my story because it is a unique story. So, boom. I'll never forget. I was 12 years old, and we stayed in West Bank. We stayed on the West Bank in Algiers, and days leading up to the storm, I remember like they would come on the news and be like, "Oh, it's only a hurricane. It's only a Category 2. Just boarder up your house. You'll be fine. Stock up on food. Like go to the grocery store. Blah blah blah." Like they always say, because we used to hurricanes. Then the day before Katrina, which was August 28th, my mama was pregnant, and she was due to have a baby within like the next few hours or like the next day or something. And so we were going to stay in New Orleans. My whole family evacuated to different places, but for the most part, most of my family evacuated to Mississippi because that's like where our people from. And so everybody evacuated to Mississippi, but my mama was like, "Oh, we just gonna stay because I'm about to have a baby. We gonna go to the hospital. We gonna be fine," right? The day before the storm, I remember it like days before he was on the news saying like, oh, now it's a category 3. Like, you know, if you can evacuate, go ahead and do that. Like if you get out, get out. But if you're not gonna leave, you know, do this, do that. Make sure you have flashlights, candles. Like the power gonna go out. Like this and that is gonna be crazy. The day before the storm, I remember that man was on that news screaming at the top of his lungs. He damn near was cursing on the news. He was like, get out. It is a category 5 hurricane now. Get out. Do not stay in New Orleans. Do not try to ride this thing out. You will not make it. You're going to die. And if you don't die, you're going to be stranded for a very long time. He was screaming at everybody. And I remember going outside and looking at the sky. And the sky was like the clouds, the sky, the whole, like, earth was red. I don't know if anybody else remember that, but I will never forget that sky. The sky was like a bright orange, red color. And I remember going outside and looking at the sky, and I called my sister and my mama. I was like, Ma, like, Brittany, like, look at the sky. Like, that's crazy. It looked crazy outside. Like, it looked scary. Like, it looked like the sky was on fire, like this red. And then I remember, I don't know what, like, oh, actually, I do know what happened. So my mama called her doctor who was going to perform the delivery. And she was like, hey, like, me and my daughters, we just packed up a little bag, literally like an overnight bag, because we was used to this. She was like, we about to head to the hospital. Like, you know, what do you think? And my mama doctor told her straight up, she was like, Stacey, look, take your girls and get out of this city, because it's going to be bad. Y'all not going to want to be in this hospital. It's already crazy right now. Like, if I was you, I would not stay here and try to have that baby. Take your kids and leave. By this time, it was about 5, 6 o'clock, like, or it had to be maybe like 2, 3 in the afternoon, anywhere from 2 p.m. to like 5 p.m. in the afternoon, the night before the storm. Mind you, the storm hit the next morning. So mama was like, all right. So she was like, we about to hit the road. Like, we about to try to get out as far as we can. Like, at this point, it's so many people trying to evacuate. It's so much traffic. People just trying to go wherever. So we started heading west. And if you from New Orleans or you've been to New Orleans, you know how they have Lake Pontchartrain, that long bridge over the water. So we start driving that way. And I don't remember if we was heading to Mississippi or if we was just driving. I don't know. My mama probably wasn't even in her right mind because she was literally about to go into labor. And we just started driving. I remember I was in the back seat, my sister was in the front seat, and my mama was driving. It was just us three because my stepdad was a cop at the time, so he stayed back and, you know, served his duty as a cop. And we started driving, and normally it takes about 45 minutes if you speeding to like an hour to get to Baton Rouge, which is like right down the street from New Orleans. So we started driving, and my mama started having contractions. And I remember she was driving, and she was just rubbing her stomach, and she was breathing real heavy. She was just like, and she was just driving. But it was standstill traffic. You couldn't get nowhere. So we was stuck on the bridge on top of Lake Pontchartrain, and it was literally like standstill traffic. It took us 5 hours to get out of that traffic. It was so much traffic, like people was just like standing on the bridge. Like you could just get out your car and just chill on the bridge and like look at the water because you ain't going nowhere. And my mama just started having her contractions. She started going, and my mama was like overdue. She was like 10 months pregnant. She wasn't like, you know, it was like that baby was coming. He was coming. And we call my little brother Storm to this day because, you know, he came, his birthday was like literally the day of the storm. So we drive for like 5 hours, and I think we was trying to head to Mississippi to get to like my grandma and my aunties and my uncle and everybody. But my mama just pulled over the first time, like the first stop she could, the first exit she could, because she was like, I'm about to have this baby. Like, I need to stop, like, wherever. So we stopped in Baton Rouge at the Women's Center or something like that. It was a hospital. where they literally like are known for just like giving birth. We stopped there and we ran in there. We was just like, my mom about to have a baby. My mom about to have a baby. We from New Orleans. Like we just evacuated. Like you know, she needs a doctor. So they was like, all right, like it's real busy right now. Like it's a lot going on. The storm about to hit. All these people came to the hospital because, you know, everybody who was having a baby, I guess, was in there trying to have a baby. And my mama didn't have a doctor. That wasn't her doctor. Like, you know, that their system set up for that, I guess. So they put us in the waiting room and we sat on chairs. My mama she was sitting on a chair and she had her feet on a chair in front of her. And we just sat in the waiting room for, I don't even know how long. It was hours. Like it took forever for them to finally come and see us. And we just watching the news in the waiting room. And we watching and they saying like, oh yeah, it's gonna be crazy. And then it became dark. It was nighttime, the night before Katrina. And we just sitting there like waiting on our fate. And then finally they put us in a room. And me and my sister, we like slept on the little chairs, like so uncomfortable. And then the next, they put my mama like on like all the stuff or whatever. And my brother didn't come yet. So the next morning, we watching the news, we hear helicopters outside of the hospital, and we was like, what's all that noise? Like, what's going on? And then the nurse was telling us like, oh, people are getting airlifted to this hospital from the city, from New Orleans. And we was like, airlifted? Like what happened? Like, you know, how was the hurricane? Like, because we could hear it. It was raining and storming where we was at, but it wasn't that bad. We turned on the news. When I tell you, when we saw that water all the way up to the roofs of people's houses and people laying on their house drawing out the word SOS, we looked at each other like, what? We literally packed the overnight. I had like one pair of panties, one outfit, and that's it. And we looking at each other like, what is going on? So then my mama finally goes into labor and she ended up having my brother on the 30th. Now, the day after Hurricane Katrina hit, Hurricane Rita also hit. And Hurricane Rita hit a lot of Mississippi and Louisiana and New Orleans too. So that really took everything out. And we didn't know where everybody was at because once Rita hit, everybody lost cell service. It was no way you could contact nobody in certain parts of Mississippi, which where my whole family was, and all of New Orleans. So nobody knew where we was at. Nobody knew that we had made it or not to Baton Rouge. Nobody, like our family had no idea where we was. My stepdaddy didn't know where we was at. We literally could not contact nobody. And the story gets crazier after that. But my brother was born, and come back for part 2. Okay, y'all, I'm back for part 2. Sorry, I fell asleep and I woke up to all these messages. So, boom. Nobody knew where we was at. We had no cell service. My stepdaddy did not know that my mama had the baby yet. So we was still in the hospital. And all these women started getting airlifted to the hospital that we was at. And, you know, the havoc had already took place. So a lot of people from like different magazines and news stations was heading down, like trying to get to New Orleans. So People magazine came to the hospital that we was at, and this lady wanted to interview my mama and me and my sister because my mama had just had my little brother. Like it was like a day or two after my mama had my brother. Like it was very, very close. So she interviewed my mom. And she was like, so where's the father of the baby? And my mama was like, well, he a police officer, so he's still in New Orleans. We haven't talked to him. He don't even know where I'm at or if I had the baby or not. So that lady took a picture of my mama and my little brother. And she was like, I'm going to New Orleans tomorrow and I'm going to find your husband and I'm going to show him a picture of his baby. And I'm going to insert the picture that she took of my mama and my little brother right here. And so I'll tell y'all what happened after that with the picture, but I'm going to continue with the actual sequence of events. So my mama a soldier, like for real. Like I saw a lot of the comments and she really is a soldier. So My mama was not playing after. And so the hospital was saying, like, we don't really, I didn't realize that the hospital was telling my mama that she had to leave and that they couldn't keep us because they needed the space, they needed the room. I thought that we just was leaving because I was kind of young still. But apparently they kicked us out. And so we had to leave. So my mama, we didn't have nobody who could pick us up, and it was a disaster. So my mama had to get back behind that wheel about not even a week after having my little brother. It was days. She had to get back behind that wheel, and we had to just drive. We couldn't call nobody and say, hey, we coming here. Hey, where y'all at? We just had to get on the road and go. And this was before you could get on Google Maps and all of that. Like, we had to do MapQuest, printing out a MapQuest. And we started driving from Baton Rouge to Natchez, Mississippi. I don't remember exactly how far that is. Y'all can Google it. But it had to be some hours. Like, it usually used to take us like at least 4 to 5 hours to get to Natchez. But I could be wrong. But y'all could Google it. We drove all the way to Natchez, Mississippi, my mama. And we got there. And by the time we got there, the only people that was at my auntie house was my auntie, my little cousins, my older cousin, who I call my uncle, and that was it. And my grandmother, everybody had left to go back to New Orleans to try to find us because they didn't know where we was at. So you literally could not communicate. It was like living in the 1800s. Like, you couldn't communicate with nobody. You had to just get on the road and hope that you run into somebody. And you definitely couldn't get back into the city because they wasn't letting nobody back into that city yet. So we only had, mind you, don't forget, we only had about 2 T-shirts, a pair of panties, and that was it. I packed a little bitty bag, but I brought my Barbie dolls because I don't play about my Barbie dolls. So then we got to Mississippi. We stayed in Mississippi overnight. Mississippi didn't have power either because, mind you, Rita had hit by the time we got to Mississippi. It was days after Katrina. Somebody said it was a month later. No, baby, it was days. Katrina hit on August 29th. It might have hit in September, but mind you, it was only like one more day left in August. My brother was born August 30th. So we get to Mississippi. They had no power. We have a newborn baby. We can't sit in the house with no electricity in the middle of nowhere in the country in Mississippi. Absolutely not. But my auntie had a generator, but the generator smells so strong of like the gas, the gasoline to keep it running. The gas smell was running all through her house. And I just remember laying on the floor because they didn't have room for everybody, but I was asleep on the floor. My mama was asleep on a chair. And she was up all night. She did not go to sleep. She was just rocking my little brother. And I remember she looked at me and my sister. She was like, we got to go. We got to get up out of here. I can't stay here. We didn't know where we was going to go, what was going to happen. But I remember my mama said my Uncle Mike looked like Jesus walking through. Oh, actually, my Uncle Mike wasn't there. He wasn't at the house. It was just my auntie and my cousins. But the next day after we had been staying in the house, dang, I'm sorry. I'm trying to remember everything. The next day, my Uncle Mike came to the house, and he had on a white T-shirt. She said she looked out the window and saw him walking up. She was like, he looked like Jesus walking up about to save us. So my Uncle Mike came, and he was like, Stacey, everybody been looking for y'all. Nobody know where y'all at. Like, y'all got the baby. Like, what's up? And my mama was like, yes. And she was like, we got to go. She was like, I don't know where you about to go, but can we please come with you? And he was like, yeah, like my girl got a house in Baton Rouge, exactly where we just left. He was like, I'm about to go to Baton Rouge. He was like, I just been making my rounds, driving everywhere, looking for everybody. Like, he was like, I don't know where a lot of our family at, but he was like, I'm determined to find everybody. And he was by himself. It was crazy. And so he gave us the address, and we went back to Baton Rouge, and we stayed at his girlfriend's house. Now, his girlfriend was sweet as pie, super nice. Her family was nice, but it was just very, like, uncomfortable because we didn't know her. They had only been dating for a little while. Like, imagine you meet somebody, and you talking to them for, like, a month, and then a big natural disaster happened, and now your house is the only safety, and the boy who you've been talking to for like only a month needs somewhere for his family to go. Like, you can imagine, like, it was very uncomfortable, very awkward. And we had a newborn baby, and she had us, the only place she could put us was on the floor in an extra bedroom that she had. So my mama looked at us again and was like, we gotta go. And while we was in Baton Rouge, we started to get like a little bit of cell service, because mind you, more days had passed by. By this time, it had to be like a week, maybe 2 weeks after Katrina, but we still couldn't go home. We had to buy clothes from Walmart and, really figure everything out. And so we finally got some service, and we got in touch with my stepdad. Now, my stepdad, he was able to leave the city, and he met us in Baton Rouge, which was super, super nice. And when we seen him, we was all screaming like, oh my God. It was like a moment. We cried, and, it was sad. And he whipped out that picture that lady from People magazine, whoever that lady was, shout out to you. If you ever see this video, like, you really, like, you were a staple in our life, girl. Like, you really did your thing. Because when we seen him, he pulled out that picture that lady took of my mama and my little brother. And he was like, man, when that lady found me, she was crawling through the water. The water was all the way up to their hips. And he was like, some white lady was just screaming my name, like saying, like, excuse me, sir. And he said, she caught up to him in the middle of all of that stuff. And then she told him, like, sir, like, your wife and your kids are in a hospital back in Baton Rouge. I just interviewed them, and she had your baby. You had a little boy. His name is Rashad. And she showed him the picture. And she I guess she gave him like an actual copy, because he had the picture still. That's how I showed y'all the picture. And she was like, this is your son. And I could not believe, I'm about to cry right now thinking about it, because I couldn't believe that lady actually kept her word and gave my stepdad some peace of mind while he was out there fighting for his community, fighting for his city, doing his like justice as much as he could. And, that gave him some peace of mind, and we finally caught up with him.
I feel like there's only a handful of people that have ever told my full Hurricane Katrina story, because there's probably more of us out there that had this really traumatic event happen to us than we realize, and I'm already crying about it, and we haven't even started yet. My family is from Chalmette, which is right next to New Orleans, if you don't know where that is. In the 5th grade when Hurricane Katrina happened, my brother was in the 8th grade. Just like every other storm that ever came through South Louisiana, we really didn't know if this one was going to be worth evacuating for, so we kind of waited till the last minute. We only packed a few days worth of clothes for each person like we would have for any other storm. And then my mom happened to grab some of our photographs and stuff, because she saw like how big the storm was looking on the TV, and so we were kind of getting a little scared of this one, and that's all we packed. And so we waited till I think the night before. I remember us like sitting on the sofa bed in the living room watching the news and just waiting and seeing like, should we leave or should we not? And my parents went ahead and made the decision that we needed to. So we all hopped in the tiny RV and we started to just drive north. I don't really think that we even had a plan. We didn't have any family outside of South Louisiana. All my family lived within the area. So we headed up. I think we stopped in Jackson, Mississippi first. And I want to say either the owner of the RV park came out and said, hey, you might want to leave. Like, I feel like the storm is going to get bad here too. Or my parents just made the executive decision. So we kept going north with, again, no plan. We ended up in Arcadia, Louisiana, which is at the very top part of Louisiana. We ended up in a little RV park called Bonnie and Clyde Trade Days RV Park. Once we got there, we didn't really have a plan. The plan was just, I guess, to wait it out and see if the storm passed. After the storm had passed through and like the news coverage could start of the devastation, I remember one night we had walked over to another person's RV area and they had set up like a black and white satellite antenna TV. And everybody was standing around it watching the news, because we didn't have a TV in our RV, and of course cell phones didn't have internet back then. So we were watching the TV, and I remember it was helicopter coverage. And God, and the helicopter turns down the street and he goes, we're on Corrine Drive. And that was the street that we lived on, and all you could see was this much of the roof on every single house. And I remember my mom just immediately broke down and started walking back. 'Cause, you know, you realize at that point, it's all gone. Like, we had left all of our cars there and everything. The only thing that we had driven away in was the RV, and we didn't tow anything behind it. So I remember us just walking back, and then it was like, well, what do we do now? Because there's nowhere to go back to. Like, you could not get back into the area. Luckily, the owners of the RV park, Kathy and Ed were their names, and we made friends with them, and they knew our situation, and they were so kind. There was like a church who donated clothes and food to us because we didn't have any extra clothes than like the 3 days worth that we had, and they let my brother and I stay in their house for like a couple of nights. Like, they had an extra bedroom because their daughters had moved out or went to college or something, and they were so kind to just let us have a couple of nights of normalcy, because my brother and I were sharing that bed that goes over the driver's seat in a tiny RV. And if you've ever seen one of those, there's literally only enough room for like your body to lay. You can't even sit up. And then my parents were sleeping on the pull-out sofa in the bottom part of the RV. Like, we were really jam-packed, and we had a dog, so like there was no room to breathe in there. And then a few weeks later, once the water went down and people were able to get back in, the owner of the RV park, Ed, was a retired firefighter, and so he had a lot of gear, and he offered to my dad to take him back down and to go just look at what the house even looked like. We had no idea. So he got a trailer, he packed like a barrel of gas, he packed guns, they packed all the things, food, stuff that they thought they would need, because you could not get a gas station down there. There was nothing open. It was literally like a war zone. So he went, just him and Ed, to see, because he didn't want to take us back down with him because he had no idea, you know, what it looked like. When they got to the house, there was just stuff everywhere. My dad couldn't even get into the backyard because things were piled up. There were cars in bushes, just stuff everywhere. Since my dad and Ed could not get in through the backyard, I remember him saying that he had to axe down the front door. And then I remember later my mom told us that was really emotional for her, because she and my dad had saved a bunch of money to buy the beautiful front door that my mom had always wanted, and he had to axe it down to get into the house because there were feet, like a couple of feet of just like mud and sediment and stuff at the bottom of the house. Like, they could not get through the front door, opening it regular. I think he said he put the key in the lock and it broke off because it was so rusted, because it sat in water for such a long time. There were fish when I went back weeks later than that, stuck to the front window. There were snakes in the rafters, like dead snakes hanging up there. There were bags that have floated and sat on top of the wooden rafters. Like, our house had got water to the peak of the roof. The couch was in the kitchen. Like, nothing was salvageable. Murphy Oil Refinery in the area, their oil tanks had lifted, and so crude oil got in the water in Chalmette, and so everybody's house was also covered in that. It was just a complete awful mess. And even when we went down, like I said, even later than when my dad had went, it still was a ghost town, a war zone. There were boats just in the street, like, horrible. Like, you can't even imagine, and there's nowhere to go back to. So after that happened, after we saw the devastation and we knew, like, we can't come back, like, it's gonna take too long, my parents decided, well, the kids need to get back into school, like, they need some kind of normalcy. So we ended up moving to the Shreveport area and just stayed because we didn't know where else to go and we needed to get in school. My parents needed to find new jobs. I don't know how my parents managed that, because I don't know what I would have done now as an adult, and I don't even have any kids. And it's like, I don't know. They're like superheroes. All the parents that took their kids through that and navigated that, you're amazing, because I don't know what I would have done. But they got us in school. We ended up, you know, finding like a rental house to get. We had absolutely nothing to put in it. The only thing that I took with me when we evacuated was my flute. And I still have that flute. I started band in the 4th grade. I still play. But anyway, I used that when I got back in middle school, and I've gotten a new flute since, but I still have it. But that's all I have for my original childhood bedroom. Once we moved into the rental house, we had a blow-up mattress for a really long time, and I had a plastic dollhouse that they had bought me there's this little trade days thing at the Bonnie and Clyde RV park, and everybody would come, like vendors, and they would just sell like flea market type stuff. And my dad bought me it's like a big plastic dollhouse, and that was the only thing in my room for a real long time until he was able to get me a bed from Goodwill, and it was a bunk bed. And it actually ended up having a bunch of spiders in it, and I would wake up with like bites on my legs, and later on he sawed it apart to like bring it back, and spiders came running out of it from the vibration of the saw. So anyway, I think I might have to break this into 2 parts because it's getting kind of long, so I'm gonna put the rest of my story on part 2. I remember getting back into school again. I was in the 5th grade, and I don't remember how many weeks after school had started, but it was the middle of the school day, and my class had went to PE, and I think I was in the bathroom, and I didn't know where they were, and so I kind of just went back in the room and sat down. I broke down crying in the middle of, like, for no reason. I guess, like, I was just processing, and it took that long for it to like catch up with me, and they actually sent me home that day, and then I stayed home, I think, from school the next day, and that was it. I never got any counseling. One of my friends the other day at work, we were talking about the 20th anniversary, and she said, did you ever get counseling for that? And I was like, no, and I feel like most of us didn't, but maybe we need it. But then after that, like I said, we just ended up living in North Louisiana until I graduated high school, and then my parents moved back down to the Baton Rouge area to be closer to my mom's family, who is still like in the I-12 corridor area, if you know what that is. None of us moved back. My Aunt Kelly did end up moving back to Chalmette for a little bit, but then quickly left because it wasn't the same, and it never will be the same, and we were robbed of that experience. We never had closure. We never got to go home. My brother never got to go to Chalmette High School, and he, you know, that was horrible. He'd always wanted to. So for a lot of us, you know, you just don't understand, like, even if we weren't the ones who were like in the devastation when it happened, it was still horrible, and we never got any closure. It affects me to now, the way that I handle my possessions. I've always been a really good steward of everything that I feel like the Lord has blessed me with now, because I know what it's like to lose literally everything. And so everything that I have, I take really good care of, and I take pride in all of the you know, the stuff that I have, and I'm appreciative of it. And I realize in the moment that I am so lucky and I'm so blessed to have what I do have. Since then, we've only been to Chalmette a few times. We did drive by and like see where the house was later, and it's just been bulldozed, and there's not a house there anymore. It's just a backyard. You know, people ask us, did we like living in North Louisiana? And for me, I kind of assimilated easily. I was young, and I also make friends easily. I'm just like an extroverted kind of person, so it wasn't too bad for me. But I know that I don't think my parents liked it very much, or my brother. It's a culture shock. If you come from the deep south in Louisiana and then you move to the northern part, it's so different, and they really hated it there. It's just very southern fried country in North Louisiana compared to South Louisiana, which is a completely different atmosphere. They have a different accent. Everybody thought my dad was from New York when we were in North Louisiana because that Chalmatian accent is so different. I don't have it because I didn't live there long enough to keep it, but my mom and dad do, and the rest of my family do. If you ever hear them talk, it's funny. But, you know, so I didn't mind so much, and now, you know, we live in the Baton Rouge area, and so again, it's even different here. So I've kind of just gotten used to where I moved to and accepted where I was and liked it. I don't know that I would ever move back down. My family is too scared to ever move close enough to experience a storm like that again. We were in this area though for the Great Flood in 2016, and that was very traumatic to possibly flood again. We got so lucky that we did not flood again in 2016 in this area. So yeah, I don't think that I would ever go down again. I don't think that I ever have a desire to live back in the area because I was so young. I think I can kind of assimilate and be happy wherever I am. But I know some people say that they would, but I know that everybody that lives there now said that the city is different and it'll never be the same again. And that's so sad. One crazy thing is that my teacher that I had in 5th grade when I had started I ended up finding her on Facebook like a couple of years ago, and I messaged her and I said, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but I actually had her 2 times. I had her in like the 3rd grade and the 5th grade, I believe. I said, I don't know if you remember me, but I was in your class when Katrina hit, and I just wanted to, reach out and say hi and thanks. And she responded and she said that I'm the only student from her class of 5th graders that she has contacted since the storm. After the storm, she never saw any of us again. And I think that's kind of crazy as a person. I was a teacher for the last 8 years. I don't teach anymore, but that's kind of crazy. It's like to never see any of those kids again. And I'm sure she moved out of the area because ended up her sons went to the high school that I was a teacher at. So I just thought that was a crazy story too. So anyway, that's my Hurricane Katrina story.
Hurricane Katrina wasn't just a storm. It was a national tragedy. When Katrina hit in August 2005, it exposed not only the devastation of nature, but also the failures of government, infrastructure, and the systems that were supposed to protect people. Katrina revealed the truth about inequality in America. The people who suffered the most were the poor, the elderly, and Black communities who didn't have the resources to evacuate. The levees broke, neighborhoods were destroyed, and thousands were left stranded with no food, no water, and no help for days. The images of families on rooftops, the chaos inside the Superdome, and the desperation across New Orleans made it clear. The country wasn't ready, and the response was too slow. What should have been a moment of rescue turned into a symbol of neglect. Katrina also showed how fragile a city can be when systems fail. Homes were destroyed, schools and hospitals were lost, and entire generations were displaced. The scars of Katrina are still visible almost 2 decades later. Hurricane Katrina will always be remembered as more than just a natural disaster. It was a human disaster, one that showed how easily people can be forgotten when leadership fails. The storm may have passed, but the lessons from Katrina should never be ignored.